Actually, I'm frustrated. I'm beyond frustrated. I know that we talked about this before. We are a 3-station district now. That's all there is to it. We are a 3-station district. You do not fight fire with less than 5 engines. And we're fighting fires with less than 5 engines, it sounds like. If that Bethel Island structure would have been an actual structure fire having 4 engines, the last engine is Rick. That is the crew that's set aside to save firefighters in case they go down. And what we're going to say is we just don't have Rick. We don't have the people there that are necessary to save the people inside in case they go down. The mindset has to change. We are not here to continue to band-aid the issues that we've band-aided in the past. I know that we want to, and I know that the firefighters want to. I know that that's what our desire is because that's what fire service does. But the reality is we are now a 3-station district. We cannot keep operating tactically like this. We have to change our tactics to make sure that our firefighters are protected. There is no life worth any property. That's the bottom line. If our firefighters show up and there's a life rescue, that's something that needs to be made, they will make entry. I guarantee they'll do everything they can to make sure that those lives are saved. But when it comes to properties, no way. We should not be making entry.
I agree with you. There's not a structure in this district that's worth a firefighter's life, nor any firefighter's life in any other community across the nation, period. The only time a firefighter should put their life at risk is to save another. And I know our firefighters will step up and do the right thing every time, all the time. And they will take that risk. But I agree, a 3-station model doesn't work. A 4-station model doesn't work. And I heard that there were individuals out there saying, well, maybe we can help the district open 1 more station. I'm not interested in opening 1 more station. I'm only interested in getting to 5 stations as a minimum and more than that if possible, period. Don't come to me with a 4th station. I'm not interested because that doesn't save or change anything. Again, that's just another Band-Aid that doesn't solve the problems we face, nor the operational aspects. I do want to address a volunteer issue. I was a volunteer firefighter. I started out that way. And volunteer firefighters do have a place in the fire service. But the conditions for fire have changed. And let me explain how that is. Today's structure fires are entirely different than that of 20 years ago or 25 years ago with what we call legacy construction and legacy contents, which means that when a fire occurs in a residence, it's easy for the fire to build over a 15 to 20 minute period before a flashover occurs and the fire becomes fully involved in a room or in a major portion of the structure. Today, because of low mass contents, which means mostly plastics, which exist for about 75 to 80% of the contents of any structure today, low mass contents and lightweight construction, which is the design criteria for most structures built after the 1980s, result in flashovers occurring usually within 3 to 5 minutes or less, depending upon the conditions. This is another reason why volunteer firefighters don't work, because of the delay for volunteers to get to the fire station, to get on the rig, and then get to the fire. The conditions are already beyond the scope of volunteers only to respond. Now, volunteers do have a place as augmentation to pay professional firefighters, and we have addressed that issue in the past as part of this board, and we were unable to get the public to step up and volunteer. It was something we did address at one time. But I assure you that they do not replace paid professional firefighters who are on duty in that station ready to respond within seconds of the call being received. That's the key. That is how you save property today. And it's why most agencies are converting to paid professional firefighters instead of remaining as a volunteer force, and that's across the nation. And just as a last component of that, volunteer firefighters do help, but they're not the answer to the initial response and to the initial response needs of a fire and structure fire. And I assure you that having been a volunteer firefighter, that was something new to me. And then I look back upon my volunteer days and I realized that oftentimes I couldn't even get to the fire station within 3 to 5 minutes, let alone get to the fire within 3 to 5 minutes from the station. So the delays were significant. The difference was the conditions were different then too. So I just wanted to share that because you've come up twice now, and I wanted you to have some level of education of how volunteers do help, but at the same time are not the answer. Thank you.
I think last month, Chief, you had listed some ongoing activities, the need to decide what calls are going to be dropped and no longer responded to, and a new criteria for how we would operate in the field. And I understand that we're going to have a report back on that in August, or what is the schedule on that?
In August is going to be a return from the information from the ad hoc committee. We've been working on these policies and procedures. We've been modifying and changing back and forth. Chief Helmick, his operations, has spent the last 2 weeks over at Contra Dispatch working with their operations chief on making the necessary changes to this, which included zones, trying to cover the mutual aid component in there. As far as having a policy that says we're not going to directly fight structure fire, to me, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure there, because you're going to tell firefighters they're not going to do something, and then we're going to turn into a discipline situation. I know there's a frustration with the change. I know having to move across the district from one side to the other has added stress. Yesterday there was 22 calls in the district for the 24-hour period. Engines were moving back and forth and across, including providing auto aid out of the district at times, going into Antioch. So we are looking at those changes. Some of the problems is with the areas where we're looking at some of the low priority calls and looking at the month of May, those numbers only turned it out with 15 or 20 calls out of 596 calls. So looking at making some additional modifications and what those exact modifications are, we have. Troops have seen 2 versions of an auto aid agreement this month. They've also seen 2 versions of operational changes and plans. And I think that adds to the frustration of the firefighters, because, you know, it's a fluid plan as we're trying to make this work. Not knowing where those mutual aid resources are coming or what those mutual aid commitments are also add to the dynamics of this. On any given day, the first 3 agencies that we call for mutual aid may be unavailable for mutual aid based on their individual impacts. So having that being said, each incident is going to have to be evaluated and decisions are going to have to be made on a case-by-case basis.
Do you know offhand the list of agencies we call for mutual aid, Chief? First goes and second.
I believe the current list is Contra Costa Fire first, I believe Cal Fire second, then it goes to Tracy. Naval Weapons has been added, Alameda County, Livermore, Pleasanton, San Ramon Valley, and Moraga, I think are the 8 agencies. All covering great distance, but those are our closest resources around the district.
People better pray they don't have their emergencies during the evening commute time.
Does that include, did we ever thought about Rio Vista or Montezuma as well? For the north?
Talking to Rio Vista, they have 1 crew on, and that's even farther than Tracy, unfortunately.
Chief Anki said, I don't remember exactly, it was something about setting firefighters up for failure if we tell them not to fight fire. Make sure I say that correctly.
I think if we build a box and say we're not going to do an interior attack on a structure fire, and then a crew gets on scene, makes a decision, gets a good save, and does an interior attack, and now they're going to be disciplined for fighting a fire, I think we open ourselves up for failure for the firefighters. I also agree for what Vince said, that, and we saw this happen the last time we were in those 3 stations, that auto aid resources are going to be reduced to 2 units. I have been one of those incident commanders where all of a sudden I have 5 engines from Contra Costa Fire there, and 3 of them weren't officially dispatched. We know that resources are going to come in quicker than the others. This is trying to get this dialed into a plan so everybody understands what's going on, is the circumstances that we're working through.
In the situation where we have plenty of resources, I agree with you, there is no issue. But when we know that we don't have enough resources coming, or we know that there's an extreme delay in terms of response times, I think we need to build a box. 13 minutes out to a structure fire, we know that odds are that structure fire is not, the property's not going to be salvageable. And to roll the dice and allow units to make a decision on whether they're going to go in, because I think we both know that odds are firefighters are going to want to make entry and do whatever they can to protect property and life. That's what they're hired to do. The reality is we've got a whole different ballgame now, and in order to make sure that they go home safe, that we don't have to knock on somebody's door some night and say, I'm sorry, but your husband or your spouse has passed away because we didn't have enough units on scene. I don't want to go there. So we need to be crystal clear in terms of if we have a minimized response or a delayed response, that there has to be clear policy in terms of, unless it's an incipient fire or there's no ideal age, that they're not to make entry. We can't roll the dice on it. It's not worth it.
At this time, we're going to go from this. We're getting into operational procedure and not fire station closure. It's going beyond the scope of the discussion item. So is there any more discussion on item D2 before we move on? And I do have a couple of things on item D2. I know that there were some comments regarding station closures. Just for the record, we have 3 stations. We have 9 people protecting nearly 110,000 bodies. It cannot be done. We just reduced our ability to respond to fires by 40%. The reality is this: there is every likelihood that if you call 911 for a medical or fire response, that you will get no one there in time to help save a life or save a structure. That is not something that might happen. It's something that has happened and will continue to happen. As far as Discovery Bay having their station open, it was closed twice already. You had no station. Twice already. So to think that everything is able to be handled properly because of these closing of stations, that is the very definition of insane. It can't be done. I feel very comfortable that we as a board have done everything we can. We put the choice in the hands of the property owner and the voter, and you resoundingly said that you were willing to live with 3 stations for as long as you are able to live without the necessity of emergency response. Director Smith at the time made a profound statement, God help us all, and I second that statement. You cannot imagine the personal danger that you may be in right now because of this. It cannot be overstated that the closing of these stations has done more to devastate the safety of our families than anything else that has happened in the history of this area. Our firefighters are the best at what they do. They have worked for years with so much less to do a job so well that no one realized how far over they were going to accomplish our safety over and above the call of duty. And I appreciate it, and all of our board does. But these station closures are absolutely devastating. There is no possible way that 3 stations can protect this district. It cannot happen. Can't happen. Close item D2, move on to item D3, receive operational update from